Two more things I'm going to do to finish off this example. First of all, let's just throw some text in there. So we have the text tool down here on the tools panel. We select the text tool and we can then click up in here to create some text. Now just before I do that, you'll see that in the options bar along the top we can choose a font. Loads of fonts to choose from there, so I'll pick a font. We can pick a font size, and alignment, and this one here it would be the colour, so I'm going to make that a darkish grey. Click OK, and so now if I click in here, I can type in my text like so. If I wanted to change that, I can just double click to select that. I can manipulate that. It needs to be a little bit bigger. Let's go bigger than that, shall we? Let's go up to 60. I can use the move tool to reposition that to within inside of there. And if you didn't like that font, we could again just double click to select that. We could try something else like so. Okay, so that's the text tool. I'll just pick up the move tool to drop that. The other tool I wanted to show you here was the gradient tool. Now we have the fill bucket over on the side. Underneath the fill bucket we have the gradient tool. So I'll select the gradient tool like so. And we have on the options bar various settings related to gradients. So you can have what we call linear gradients or radial gradients. There are angle gradients and reflected gradients, so lots of fun stuff for you to have a play with in here. Now I'm going to pick, I think, a linear gradient here, and the default one there is white to transparent, you see via the checkerboard, but I can click on the drop down and there's some other predefined gradients there for me to use. I could click to create a new gradient if I wanted to. Let's just call this, we'll leave that as custom, click OK, and it's basically duplicated the existing one. So I'll select that one. Let's come out of there a second by clicking up at the top. Now to change the colours of the gradients, you click in this bar, double click in that bar, and that will take you into the gradient editor. So along the top we have the opacity setting, so that at the moment is 100% to 0. Let's make that 100 to 100. And along the bottom these icons are the colour. So if I picked a different colour, notice I can use the eyedropper to wander off and pick a colour off that image if I fancy that. And let's go down this end here, let's pick a different colour there, like so, click OK. So there's my gradient. You can move these up and down to increase the sharpness of the gradient. You can also click along this line at any point and you can choose to add different colours at any point to change the appearance of the gradient completely. So you can move these across like so, play around with your gradient charts content. If you don't like one of these, just drag it off like so. Okay, so there's my gradient. I'll click OK. So that's now appearing up here in the options panel. Now to apply the gradient, when I go down into the document, I'll need to put myself in a new layer for this. So I'll create a new layer. Let's drag this down to the bottom. I'll call this gradient, like so, and I'll then pick up the gradient again and then draw with my cursor a line that I want the gradient to follow, like so. There we go. And if you weren't happy with what you've done there, you could change to do it. You could choose to do a different angle. Let's show you. If I click and drag like that, you'll see the effect of doing it like that or like that, and it overwrites each time the gradient you created. So again, you can experiment until you're happy with the effect. I'm quite happy with that, and so there we go. That's an introduction to the gradient tool.